Welcome to the Deck 4 podcast. You can access episodes, companion articles, research notes and links, as well as information about our contributors and supporters at deck4podcast.com. Hope you enjoy the program. The year of 1972, which was a huge year by any estimation. Multiple records were released that year, including Burning Love, which was a number 2 hit on Billboard, went to number 1 on Cashbox, and then actually was a hit all over again as part of a compilation album which they released on the Budget, the RCA Budget label, and so that went to number 22. There were 165 shows, 2 Vegas engagements and 3 road tours. During the first road tour in the spring, the MGM cameras were covering that for another concert documentary, Elvis on Tour. The interesting thing about Elvis on Tour, Gary, I think, is even though it was only 2 years after That's the Way It Is, it looked from a different era.
It really did. It's funny you say that because through the years, I've often thought that the Elvis on Tour looks like deep into the 70s, whether it's his physical appearance or some of the different jumpsuits or some of the material he does, some of the candid behind the scenes things. It just looks totally different. And I'm not sure what that is down to. Perhaps, that's the way it is. Of course, he never looked better. So even 6 weeks later, he maybe would look different. And of course, the show was maybe tailored to a Vegas audience, so that might be different in terms of later on in performance. But yeah, the overall look, like you say, it seems like a lot of time has gone by and a lot has changed. Maybe not really much had changed in terms of anything, really, but the look definitely is very different.
That was a very successful film. It went to number 13 at the box office, according to Variety, and of course went on to win a Golden Globe as well. Now, in the summer, they were back on the road again in New York for 80,000 people over 4 shows in Madison Square Garden. Once again, very positive reviews. Another hit record from that, a live album, which went to number 11 on Billboard. Now, Gary, Elvis and Colonel Parker had been initially reluctant to play in New York, believing that the nature of their show wasn't suited to a New York audience. Now, we know New York audiences could be very tough. It was Jerry Weintraub, their promoter, that really persisted and convinced them. And of course, it became, perhaps the biggest success in terms of live concerts apart from Aloha.
Well, here's another interesting, you mentioned my man, Jerry Weintraub. Here's another outsider, a savvy outsider who deals with other artists, other big artists, and he can apply his savvy to Elvis and the Colonel and the type of show that they put on, and he saw a connection there. He saw a possibility of Madison Square Garden, whereas before, Colonel had his thing where he would aim for the middle. Aim for the cow towns and the rodeos and the fairs and the different types of venues throughout the country in the hinterlands, in the smaller towns where they were assured a hit. So going somewhere like prestigious Madison Square Garden, maybe there was a little bit of reluctance or even maybe a lack of confidence or a lack of surety on Colonel's part that they could go over in such a classy place. But the big venues, call for the big names with the big fan bases, and it's no surprise that it turned out really well, and that's the kind of drag that Presley had. Him and Madison Square Garden did, in fact, go together quite well.
When we were talking about Elvis, That's the Way It Is, in our earlier podcasts, we were talking about some of the eccentricities and some of the fan interviews, and something that struck me when I watched Elvis on Tour again, just preparing for this, the difference in the way that the fans were represented in Elvis on Tour versus Elvis, That's the Way It Is. It struck me that in Elvis on Tour, when they're talking to the fans at the concert, the camera is on the arena floor and there's a group of fans around, and it's sort of a conversation. They're on the same level as the fans. They're saying, we traveled all this way, we sing Elvis songs in our spare time, we've got all this memorabilia, and it's virtually a conversation. And when they're at the airport with the fans and at the hotels, the camera is there with the fans, and it's sort of almost we are part of this, rather than in That's the Way It Is, where it was almost like we are examining you from an outsider's perspective. Is that a fair observation, do you think?
I think so. Elvis on tour, a fan's eye view, an interesting technique of just, having the camera in amongst the people. And, we're just shooting the breeze about Elvis. We just happen to be filming it, and it's going to be part of a film. So in amongst the people, you're right. Whereas That's the Way It Is does seem more of a dissertation. We're writing a paper on Elvis, and that requires talking to some people. So we'll dissect them in a way, and we'll film that, and we'll get the skinny from them in that way. Whereas Elvis on tour perhaps is funner, more loose, and just the camera is one of the fellas maybe, and it's a little bit more grassroots and homey feeling, which ties in with Elvis on tour. The non-performance parts, the backstage, the running through the corridors, the inside the limos, it's more like you're hanging out, with Elvis. So it does have an appeal, Elvis on tour, because of some great performance footage, yes, but there's that real, as much a behind the scenes thing as we ever got of Elvis Presley. Maybe you get it in Elvis on tour.
Some very funny outtakes from that as well that you can see on YouTube that unbroadcastable probably in any other sort of medium, but they're very good. But also the eccentricities. Now, we talked at length about some of the quirkiness in That's the Way It Is, but Elvis on tour was not without its little eccentricities, and I'm thinking in particular in Dayton at the hotel, they've bailed up this very nice, quite elderly gentleman, very, very polite, nice gentleman. He's sort of got a bit of a deer in the headlight sort of look, and they're relentlessly interrogating him about which door Elvis is going to come through. And you made a great point too with That's the Way It Is about this. They interview these people, not a name on the screen, no contact. We never find out who they are, and they just come in, make their cameo, and disappear. And when they've gone, we're none the wiser.
We're left to make assumptions. I mean, I'm assuming this guy works there. Maybe he's lost, looking for the restroom. Who knows? We don't know that. And the poor guy, he's trying to figure out what's going on, and I'm just, they leave this in the movie. It's almost as if we'll interview somebody that could be something great here, and they're almost prodding it out of him, whereas viewers are screaming at the director, "You're not going to get it here. You're not going to get it from this guy. Move on." But he prompts him, "Can you point to the door?" "Oh, which door?" Well, the guy lifts his arm up. It's just riveting theater. I don't know and maybe that's what got them the Golden Globe. The human element of the poor guy. Deer in the headlights is a polite way. The polite way of saying the guy doesn't have a clue what's going on.
One thing that is a little instructive in that is that he is just as excited as everybody else that Elvis is coming to town. So that's it seems like just a very, very nice warm gentleman. Now, the other one that is a bit of a mystery, they're at the airport at Roanoke, and they've got the mayor for the civic reception as Elvis arrives, and there's this paper bag full of money that has apparently been fleeced from the fans by some kids, and the mayor sort of got this paper bag of money, and as if we're going to donate it to the Salvation Army, and someone calls out from the crowd, "Mayor, are you going to give that money to charity, or are you going to keep it?" And then it gets actually even stranger, because he goes onto the plane to present the key to the city to Elvis. Now, Elvis, of course, as always, warm, polite, very, very attentive and nice. And the mayor hands him the floral guitar as the present. You're unraveling some mystery for me, because as a kid growing up watching this, I thought, what is happening here? Did he actually say, because you've never played a guitar, we're giving you this floral guitar? It's a pretty weird thing to say anyway. But then Elvis either has deliberately misheard him or has genuinely misheard him. And says, no, I played here several times. I played in Roanoke when I was first starting out. And it's just quite odd.
So you make a good point that Elvis, maybe he did mean, or Elvis misheard him. No, I've played Roanoke before. So that is really surreal, very odd on many levels, and of course he breaks the guitar. And my favorite, though, is Elvis winking at the boys and joking afterwards, singing, "Carry me back to old Virginia." Good stuff. That's classic.
Podcast terms and conditions can be found at our website, deck4podcast.com. You can contact us there or on our social media. Find us on the major podcasting platforms, and we're also on Substack, Facebook, Tumblr, and Instagram. This has been George Fairbrother. Thanks for listening.